Hey, it's Travis. Too many camp directors run just on gut feel. Our free Resilient Camp Blueprint Diagnostic is your dashboard for resilience. Take it today at camp.mba/Travis. Again, that's camp.mba/Travis. What's one thing that you learned working at camp that surprises people when you talk about it?
This is CampHacker. Come find our show notes and our blog for camp directors and leaders at camphacker.tv.
A big thanks to our sponsors who make the CampHacker podcast possible. Imagine camp registration software that actually gives you more time to do what you love. With UltraCamp, you can effortlessly track attendance, manage staff, streamline registration, and more. Explore now at ultracampmanagement.com/camphacker. Why spend hours on your schedules only to find mistakes and missed activities for your campers? Let Camptivities do the heavy lifting and help you create the best schedule yet, without the mistakes and in less time. Come check out Camptivities, specifically designed for camps by camp people. Find out more at camptivities.com.
Hey, Camp Mavericks, and welcome to the CampHacker podcast, brought to you by UltraCamp and the Camp Recruiting and Retention Playbook from Joanna Warren-Smith and me. I'm Travis Allison. I'm a summer camp consultant specializing in getting parents to open, read, and act on your emails.
Hi, everyone. My name is Chris Hudson. I'm a camp consultant and the founder of Camp Highlight, an incredible summer camp for kids who have LGBTQ parents, endorsed by Dr. Jill Biden herself. I made that up, but it's probably true.
If you're a longtime CampHacker listener, you might suspect that Chris makes up all of his endorsements, but I swear he doesn't. I swear they're all true.
Listen, there's no way to check, and right. Who has the time?
Yeah. So you're all very busy people. CampHacker listeners, we know you're busy, so don't put time into investigating Chris's claims.
Please don't look.
Welcome to CampHacker, everybody. We're grateful you're here. I'll take just a second before we drop into the topic to say how much we appreciate reviews. It gives us some feedback. It helps other people find us. And it's an important part of the process of us being able to put out this show. So we would be super grateful if you went to ratethispodcast.com/camp. You can click the rating and reviews button there and leave us a rating. It'll go out to all the different places that people look for ratings and podcasts.
Mm-hmm. And we love affirmation. So please. Please pat us on the back.
Indeed. Yeah. So, Chris, we're going to talk today about the things that we experience at summer camp, how we talk about them. Mm-hmm. I think, because we both just came from the Tri-State Conference, and I was disturbed how much every conference hear somebody say, I can't believe that people still ask me what I do the rest of the year. Which is not exactly this question, but it is talking about the bigger picture about what summer camp is and how it impacts us. Mm-hmm. Is there something you're thinking about, Chris, as we open this topic?
About what summer camp is and how it affects us? I think about this all the time, just because as someone who has done this for basically my entire adult life, I realize how off-putting it is when I talk about it, when I have talked about it, like growing up, as it were. Yeah. People are like, well, so what are you doing at this camp? Why are you there all summer? I was like, I can't tell you about it. You just have to be there. Right. Which, when you're 22 and 23, it feels so in-group, out-group, and it's great for your ego. As a professional in the industry, trying to grow the industry, keep people and market, it's a terrible way to discuss what we're talking about. Yeah. I mean, listen, don't get me talking about camp, because I will talk for approximately 30 minutes on a podcast about it. Mm-hmm. However, the thing about it is this, like what we do at camp, there's so many skills associated with it at every level, from front lines all the way up to admin. Yeah. And I think a lot of that gets obscured by sort of the flowery and dramatic language that we use to talk about it. And now that, I've gone from the front lines to the complete other side of that, I realize how difficult it is to communicate to customers, to clients, right? Those are different people, like kids and parents, customers and clients and potential staff. Like it's difficult when you're falling back on phrases like, and I know you hate this, but like the magic of camp, or you have to be there, or it's an experience, it's a unique experience, which it is. but you have to follow that up with what makes it unique. Tell me more. Too
Hmm.
much competition for these weeks in the summer for us to
Yeah.
be so vague.
Yeah.
So I'm always looking for better ways to talk about the experience, which is funny. This is something I'm challenging myself to do now. Uh, you know, because I realize I fall back on these tropes. My doctor is gay, and I asked him if he had kids, and he's like, "Why?" I was like, "Do you send them to camp?" And we had this whole conversation.
Yeah.
He's like, "Oh, send me information about your camp." And then I was like, and I looked at what I was writing, and I was like, you know what? This needs a refresh. This isn't an appropriate thing to send someone who doesn't know anything about me, my camp, or camp.
Yeah.
Anyway, what are
Yeah.
your thoughts?
Well, this reminds me that I encourage everyone to go check out the First Class Counselors show because they did a show this year. The title was, "Wait, is this a cult?"
Which
And
we
part of the
get
reason,
accused of being all the time, by the way. All the time we get accused of being a cult. Yeah.
totally, and part of it is this language problem that we're so enamored, and a lot of us have had such profound impact by our camp experiences that we get all vague about it
Mhm.
because it feels so big to us. And I think as an industry, we are amazing at selling summer camp to other camp people,
Mhm.
but we are not good at taking that leap into families that might consider it if we just explained it well enough, if we were able to talk about, benefits, not features in a way. And so that's what I was hoping we could dig into. Can you give me something real specific, Chris, that from a young adult working at camp, what is something, a skill that you took away from camp that surprised you?
Surprised me?
Yeah.
Huh. That's a great question. I wish you had told me about that before we started recording. Because that's a great
That would
question.
require me admitting that I had that question
Okay.
before just now. So
I mean, because initially I was going to say, I mean, behavior management for sure,
yeah,
but also I learned a lot of professional behavior.
yeah,
Uh, I think the professional part surprised me more than
yeah.
the behavior management part. Like I was already, I wanted to work with kids. I was already, preparing to have a lifetime and a career of working with kids. But at that age, in like 19, 20, 21, and I'm going to say this because it's
The age
true.
is 1920, 19 comma 20,
Yeah.
not the years
Yeah,
1920
not
or
in
20.
1920. In 1920, I was only 6 years old. I wasn't old enough to work at a camp yet.
Sure, yeah.
Right.
That would be
So
wrong.
when I was 19 years old to 21 years old, what surprised me most, and I'm going to admit this, is that
Yeah,
I just didn't think of camp as a professional endeavor.
yeah.
I thought it was a whole bunch of young people hanging out, and then there were kids there too. And we'd set up these cool, I set up a lot of cool LARPing things. We'd play games, and then we'd all high five and go home.
Hmm.
The organization, I thought, that is the organization that we had to experience and use to
Yep.
create these
Yes.
environments
Yes.
surprised me. So I would say that was probably number one for me. It took me years to think of what I was doing as a
Yeah.
potential career.
Right.
Years, and like 15 of those years.
Right.
Yeah.
I remember a moment, and this was around interviewing, as after I'd been a counselor for a year or two and was starting to think about, moving up into some sort of seasonal leadership at camp, getting into an interview and having somebody ask me why, like just straight out, why do you want to come back to camp?
Mhm.
And realizing that the answer in my head was my friends and thinking that's not the answer that they need in an interview. And that's not like, if I'm serious about this, that can't be my answer forever.
Yeah.
And so that was an interesting revelation. It was like, what is camp going to give me, or how do I talk about this in an interview? That I can talk about it more than just its benefits to me. So I think that was one thing for me that kind of surprised me. And it's a combination of just how much I could be responsible for when I was young,
Mhm.
and how much of that I could handle and take on with pleasure. And I mean, I don't know. That's the thing that sticks out for me. I don't know why it's all that surprising because I grew up on a family farm, so I had a lot of more responsibilities than a lot of my friends really
Mhm.
young. But that was kind of like the family business. This was all of a sudden this place where I felt safe and needed,
Mhm.
that I could turn around and do a thing back to. And I took that so seriously while having a ton of fun and hanging out with my friends, but I took it really seriously. So I think that was one of the things that was like, oh, I can, like, I think I got early on that this is a bunch of other people's kids and what that meant. And
Yeah.
I remember sort of that transition from this is really fun and I want to do this because somebody did this for me to, oh, this is serious. And I want it to be. So this is some of the things for me that at some point I was like, oh, yeah, I had to take that thinking about it seriously.
Let me ask you a question because
Hmm.
this comes up with at Camp Highlight.
Hmm.
We talk about we had a very long, contentious conversation about CIT programs
Mhm.
at our camp,
Mhm.
and I was always dead set against it.
Hmm.
And this is what I want to ask you. I'm always dead set against it because I'm like, I feel that if you want to work in this environment, you have to have the desire facility to work with kids.
Mhm.
Okay.
Mhm.
You just accept that. Like, because some people would disagree with me because this is the conversation. It's like, well, we want to incorporate a whole bunch of people here
Mhm.
who might not necessarily go on to work with kids. I was
Yeah.
like, fair. However, you have to have the facility to work with children. Like,
Sure.
we're not just bringing people who want to get skills in organization and, behavior management or time management or something like
Mhm.
that. Like, what do you think? Like, how? Okay, what's my question here? I was about to move into a rant, so let me refocus. So my question is, like, what do you think about how do we market to young people who have so much competition for their summers now if they don't necessarily want to be a teacher, a youth development specialist, enter childcare, be a pediatrician, whatever. If they don't want to
Yeah.
work with kids,
Yeah.
do you think there's still something that we can offer young adults?
I
struggle with this.
do, and I'll tell you why, because that's my personal experience.
Mhm.
People, when I says camp director, they must be like, oh, you must love working with kids. And I'd have to say, honestly, I don't. Like, I like it. It's fun,
Mhm.
but that's not why I do this. I'm doing this because I love to see young adults realize that they're good at something and can be good at something that they've never done before. Like that's a place where I just like watching that person just realize that
Mhm.
they can take on really hard things or do this thing that they never considered. So even if it's not going to be their career. So I think that great. This is why the topic makes sense today
Mhm.
is I don't think to be a good camp counselor, you have to have a future vision of working with kids.
Okay.
Um, but I think we need to talk about camp better because of that. So if I'm thinking about, and this goes back to discussions I think we've had a couple times this year, certainly over the years, why talking about 21st century skills are important.
Mhm.
We talked in the AI show about skills that will be more important as AI becomes more important, and then all camp skills, communication, leadership, problem solving,
Mhm.
all of those things. So I think anybody who is interested in a job that involves a lot of responsibility, involves creative problem solving, heck, even working on a budget, the things that I have seen camp staff pull out, with a paint can and a stick, are pretty amazing. So I think all of those things, and that's why I want to talk about that today, is like let's articulate those things in this. So you come out of camp not just with childcare skills. I think
Yeah.
you come out with people management skills. I think if you do it well, you come out of it, all those things make a difference.
Okay. I hear that. I totally hear that. And I don't disagree with you. However, I spend a lot of time thinking about how to steal young adults away from the other opportunities that
Mm.
like have caught their eye.
Mhm.
And as far as like challenging them and trying something new,
Yeah.
love that. Very true. But I imagine like the pushback to that would be like, yeah, but why does it have to be with other people's kids? I can try something new in an industry that isn't so consequential, especially because like the people that we hire
Mm.
who are like there for a good time and they want to do camp, and then we sit them down that first day of training and we talk about what happens if a kid gets hurt or God forbid should die, and we go through that, and the way that the eyes widen
Mhm.
because
Yep.
they realize that, oh shit, yeah, it's not just these skills that
Playing
were
games,
sold
sing
to me in the
songs.
interview. Like this is really freaking serious.
Mhm.
It's 24/7 and I'm not getting paid.
Mhm.
But so that's something I'm thinking about all the time.
Yeah.
Like, how do we make that case? And if it's leaning on these skills, I think it's great because I think the one thing that we can say is, I don't know, I wouldn't use this, but it's really a gauntlet of a whole bunch of different skills that you have to operate under stress. I know it
Yeah.
doesn't sound attractive, but
Yes.
let me get to the end of this. Does
Yeah.
not
Yeah. I'm
sound
with you.
attractive.
Yeah.
However, it's like the one thing I think that I really offer my staff, I
Mhm.
would like to hope, if you're listening to this and you've worked for me, please let me know. Communication and feedback, both giving and receiving,
Mhm.
is so key in any work environment you're ever going to be in. And it's key if you ever hope to rise to a supervisor, no matter what your industry is.
Yeah.
And I feel like that is what I'm really leaning into, or what I have leaned into in interviews with new staff. It's like,
Mm.
listen, and I tell people like the skills that we want you to develop, not necessarily for us, but for you,
Yeah.
is around communication, around professional organization, and around feedback.
Right.
I think those would be my top three things that I would sell. What would you pick? Like, if you had to pitch it to a young person who's like, I don't know what to do with my summer. What would you say? And that's how they talk. I don't know
Yeah,
what to
of
do with my
course,
summer.
all of them kids these days. The so I yes, communication. Listen, communication is essential for future work. It is a place camp good camps create a safe place to explore communication and
Mhm.
practice it. And that goes back to your feedback. You can say in a safer environment, well, I think you could have communicated that better, or
Mhm.
even better, how could you have communicated that better to be
Yes.
more effectively get your message across, of course. So yeah, so I think that's the one. Communication skills are essential. I'm incredibly biased because communication is my job. Communication about camp is my job. But uh, there's so many things I see. My wife is very wise.
Smart
Um,
thing to say in public. Yes.
the end. Let's go. Let's move on. One of the things that Beth has said that just stuck with me so much, and I kind of now have my own version because of it. Beth has said that every single problem in the world, bold statement, I know. And anyway, obviously limited by perspective.
Mhm.
So many problems in the world could be solved if people had better self-esteem. If
Yeah,
people had
that's not
better self-esteem,
controversial. I agree.
then they wouldn't treat people in other ways. If they felt
Mhm.
like, they wouldn't work so hard to take advantage of other people if they're happy in themselves
Mhm.
and happy making money and making other people have money because they're already happy with themselves. So, um, so that's Beth, and I agree, like
Yeah.
the huge amount of impact. My version of that is if people were better at communicating, but I wouldn't argue that communication's before good self-esteem in this equation. So, I think that the communication skills are such a huge thing that we offer that are useful to people later in life.
Especially with this, I hate to harp on this. No, especially with this age of young people,
Mhm.
right? Because communication, I'm just my experience is that the way that young people communicate
Mhm.
isn't conducive to
Yeah.
certain environments.
Yep.
And I'm not a dinosaur. Those environments will change,
Yeah.
right? Just like, I'm Gen X. And when I was coming up, like those environments were not conducive to the way
Yeah.
I communicate. And those things now, they will change.
Sure.
But the interregnum between these periods
Mhm.
is something that we can help young people negotiate. And I think it's a hard pitch because I don't think they see it,
Right.
right? They don't see
Yep.
it, but it's real and it's there. And the other thing that I think we really offer people is time management, which
Yes.
is something that everyone needs at all times. And
Yep.
it's 24/7 and it's a gauntlet. I tell you, like it's sort of like a tough mudder. Like it
Yeah.
really is the tough mudder of childcare is working at a sleepaway camp because you will be taken to the nth degree of exhaustion.
Yeah.
That doesn't sound attractive. Let's start over. Let's start the episode. That doesn't sound attractive. I think
Well, which is
what I'm
why
seeking is something like that is a pull.
Right. That's fair. That's a really good factor
I
because
want it to be
I think
honest, but I want it to be attractive.
right. I think this is not the time of the world that we can use the somewhat apocryphal Shackleton job listing,
Mhm.
which his job listing was like 17 ways this is going to suck, but we're going to the North Pole or South Pole and please join us. But it was just this terrible, 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 terrible. And I think lots of camps have kind of done that as a joke or leaned into that in some way. I don't
Mhm.
think that that's going to work as a sales pitch for this generation because I think there's just so many terrible things that they've lived through that we need to look for the happier version of this. And we have to stop being jerks to our staff, give them more breaks and pay them better.
Listen,
Mm,
that's a whole different podcast, Travis.
yeah. Which
Not being
when we've
jerks to your
done, I
staff is
keep
great.
thinking when we talk about topics, I keep thinking about what things that we have talked about in how how we anyway, back to how we communicate about camp and all this things. So
Mhm. Yeah, I think going forward, I think that's I say this every freaking episode. Staffing is the challenge. But also, the way that we talk about to families about camp,
yes.
you know, and you are the marketing expert on this podcast, right? So you have a lot to say more than I could. Well, you have different things to say than I could, but
Agreed.
I feel like the way that we've talked about camp in my 30 years has changed.
Mhm.
It has become a little bit more granular,
Mhm.
especially in the last 10 and especially in the last 3.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Especially in the last 3. I can't tell you how many emails and calls we fielded, people inquiring about camp, and then our response being like, yeah, it's a great place for kids of queer parents, but also it's a great place for your child to learn how to socialize, how to live in community. Like, we get really granular about
Yeah.
it. And I
Yeah.
recognize that I didn't do that 10 years ago. It was
Right.
very much like, oh, it's so much fun. They're going to have a great time. They're going to be great friends. Now it's about the skills that your child is going to receive and
Yeah.
what they're going to come home like and what other parents have said their children have come, like how they've come back,
Right. Right.
which is fascinating. I think it's making the use case for camp, which there's no downside there. I think
No.
there's an honesty to it. I think families can receive it and they'll use it to make a strong decision. Relying on people's societal ideas about camp or their own personal experience when they were a camper,
Yeah.
it's going to be diminishing returns. That population will get smaller every year.
Yeah. I agree. I agree.
Mhm.
And this brings up a point that is from a research project that Joanna Wine-Smith and Dan Weir and I did, where we talked to people who wouldn't send their kids to overnight camp.
Mhm.
We realized, because again, we're good at selling camp to camp people. So other camp directors and people who have camp in their background, we can make that work pretty easily. We struggle making the leap into families that would consider it maybe, but don't don't have a background knowledge other than pop culture.
Mhm.
And screw those guys, because all the people that make bad pop culture references to summer camp are people who grew up at summer camp. All of
Yeah.
them. Makes me so mad. Where
Yeah.
was I going? How we talk about camp. Well, our lesson from the survey was the thing that we get to talk about all these great long-term benefits of summer camp
Mhm.
if we prove to families that we're safe. So safety first, safety and security first. Those have to be the messages to new families that don't know camp. And then we get to talk about stuff. Then we get to talk about fun. Obviously, I worry about starting with fun. I think it has to be part of the pitch, but I don't think it should be the
I
first
don't
thing.
think you should start with fun.
Then you
Bad
talk
idea.
about the skills and then the skill development and the things they take away. But the discussion has to open with how seriously we take safety, because
Mhm.
people's perception is the me plus perception, where we center people out and make fun of them in a dining hall. And that's not how either of us run camp.
Yeah.
And not how a vast majority of people run camp these days. So if we can talk about safety, getting our staff to talk about the training that they've received, and us talking openly about how we build staff training, how we are thoughtful and intentional about the things we teach them.
So for you, it goes safety, skills, fun.
Yeah, it's to be honest, it's I'm really digesting that and haven't decided because about 10 years ago, I did a much smaller survey, but similar answers. And, I was teaching at the time, we have to talk about safety to get to talk about development, youth
Mhm.
development and fun. And then I kind of walked away from it, I think because of COVID and think just because you know, in my heart, I want it to be that we talk about all the great benefits to kids first. I
Mhm.
want that to be the main reason that people consider us. So going back to safety, it's an interesting, I'm still absorbing how we actually do that well. But no one knows what we do that is so focused on safety. No one outside of camp knows what we practice, what we teach, the resources that we bring in to make sure that our staff feel safe and that they can make our campers feel safe. No one knows that outside of us, camp people.
Why don't we broadcast that? Like this just popped into my head. Why don't we broadcast them? Why don't people, they have our meet our staff page on
Mm,
the
mm, mm,
website. Why not
mm.
have like, safety and security and just a whole essay and information about the training the staff receives
Yep.
and just head parents off at the pass about, talk about emotional safety. Why don't we blow that up? Because I think that probably is the number one reason that people think
Of
about
course.
sending their kids to camp. Like, is this going to be safe for my child? And I don't just mean like falling into a creek.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
nowadays, especially again, because of, you know, Wet Hot American Summer, Adam's Family Values, like all these summer camp
Yeah.
movies, which show
Yeah.
children being straight up abused.
Mhm.
Like, I think it's really important that we
For
broadcast
laughs.
it. Why don't we?
Yeah. I think it is a missed opportunity from the bigger associations. I wish the bigger associations would be better at communicating. As camp leaders, we've asked them to help us with communicating the value of working at camp,
Mhm.
but I wish they were better at communicating the value of camp for kids and all these things. Like we do take this seriously. Um, and parents just have no idea the level of intention that 75% of camps bring to every single thing they do.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So yeah, it's a communication problem. I think we as an industry need to be better at that. Um, I see that as part of the role of bigger associations doing that stuff as well, doing better at that.
For sure. Absolutely. It doesn't absolve anyone from doing that work on their own,
Yep.
though. You know what I
100%.
mean? Because your own
100%.
customer base may not be aware of OCA or ACA or, like, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? I
Yeah.
can't tell you how many parents I talk to and they're like, what's the American Camp Association? And I'm like, so you don't care that we're accredited work.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. I think it's really important to lay that out for people. Cause I think, I'm talking about safety and security. I think that's gotta be, I think it's the reason, that and like, parents who can't separate.
Mm.
But for me, I feel like that's usually the deciding factor is that maybe I'm imagining it. I often feel when people are on the fence about sending their kids to camp,
Mhm.
personally, I feel like the reason why when they fall on the no side of the fence, it's because they cannot be sure of
Yep.
what's going to happen there from moment to moment, safety and security wise. And you want to use the skill stuff to distract them from that because, 90% of the time, kids are fine.
Yeah.
Honestly.
You cannot guarantee it.
Yeah, you can't guarantee it, but
There's no way.
90% of the time, 90% of the kids are fine. Like
I
physically.
bet it's even higher than that.
It probably is. I want to be realistic.
Sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think if you work at a camp, most of the kids most of the time are going to be fine.
Right.
So you really want to talk about the skills to distract the parents from that because we can talk about our safety and security stuff. But anyway, I think I'm going to think about this as far as like adding safety and security and recommend this to clients because I think it's a good get.
Well, and here's another piece of supporting, quite anecdotal, but supporting evidence. I was at Tri-State doing a session last week on retention, parent retention. And I asked a question that I always do in most of my marketing sessions. I ask people in the room if they've ever had a parent ask them about standards or about accreditation. And honestly, up until 2019, it might be 2% of the room had ever had a question about accreditation that wasn't unprompted. It's just out of the blue.
Mm-hmm.
And when I asked it again last week, it was higher. So I think this is part of parents are worried about safety. Parents are considering, so they're maybe being more informed about these things, or maybe looking for different ways of reassuring themselves, and have found standards in some ways
That's
of
interesting.
accreditation of doing that. It's not massively higher, like it wasn't a third of the room, but it might have been 15% of the room versus 2% of the room.
That is a massive increase, Travis.
Well, sure. Yeah.
That's a massive increase because, one, I think that comes out of the pandemic and media
I agree.
attention to summer camps.
Yep.
And the New York Times ran a series of pieces about summer camps, and none of them were particularly good.
Yeah.
But I think, the ACA was mentioned, American Camp Association was mentioned, standards accreditation. They went through like a camp primer.
Yeah.
And so I think parents for the first time were informed. Honestly, I think parents were informed for the first time this is a professional operation, and there's a professional organization, and there's like a loose connection, confederacy of camps who work together in this way. So on one sense, it's really good that people are asking.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It just shows that they're better educated about what we do. I wish that we could educate people without a worldwide disaster.
Sure.
That would be the goal. I don't know how we break through the noise, but
well, we capitalize on this moment, and then maybe it just becomes more culturally relevant, or better cultural practice that parents are more smart about asking these safety questions, and we're just kind of already there. So if they're asking safety questions about all their kids' activities, more pointed ones, more thoughtful ones, and we're already answering those questions, maybe that's to our advantage. I hope that's to our advantage.
I think it will be.
Yeah.
The one point I do want to make, and I don't mean to offend anyone, but the point that I'm always trying to get across, like, hey, we're not childcare. It's not just a place to drop your kid after school so they can sit till 6:30. Like, we are going to run your kid through some things, and we're teaching them things. This is a para-educational experience for them. It's not just babysitting. I do a lot of work with after schools.
Yep.
And, and I interview a lot of site directors. I visit a lot of after schools to get information and learn about their programs and help them get better. And, the one thing that comes out is that I'm like, what's your connection with the families? A lot of them say like, oh, most of them don't have any input on the programming, and they don't really show up to things. They just want us to take care of their kids. So, after school, and make sure that they're safe. And I was like, okay, work. That's interesting to me because like, I don't want people to think about camp that way.
Yeah.
Where it's just, I'm just sending my kids shop off. And I want you to understand, first of all, because I think it's a selling point, but also I don't want to do a bait and switch. Like, this is what you're paying for. This is why we're charging you so much as well. Like, it's because it's a paraeducational experience. It's not just babysitting, which is something I've had to explain to my family for decades. But that's the strong point I think to make here.
Right. I'm going to make that the final strong point.
I love having the last word. I try to do that in every conversation.
I want to take a second now and thank our sponsor of this episode, Ultra Camp. CampHacker listeners can go to an exclusive spot on the Ultra Camp website to download a special package that they've created just for our listeners called the Marketing Toolbox. They can also go to that same link, which is ultracampmanagement.com/CampHacker, and check out other resources and book a free chance to talk to folks. At this time of the year, if you're starting to get sweaty and understand that maybe your camp registration software, your camp scheduling stuff isn't doing what you need it for, then think about Ultra Camp Management as the solution to that. Maybe it's not a spring solution, but it is a spot where you can start to get a feel for how they see summer camp and how they work with us. They know that we didn't get into this job to do paperwork or look at spreadsheets or schedules in spreadsheets. And so they've created an opportunity, an all-in-one platform to streamline all the program management so you can get back to those things. You can say goodbye to the hassle of learning and managing multiple platforms to run your camp. With Ultra Camp, you can effortlessly register and manage your campers, generate and direct communication, organize schedules and activities, process payments and donations. Their goal is to help you spend less time in the office and more time out of it, doing the stuff you love, working with your campers, working with your staff. If you want to know if UltraCamp is right for you, they offer free customized demo sessions so you can see their software in action and how it directly applies to your camp. Sign up at ultracampmanagement.com/CampHacker. Chris, we are now ready for our tool of the week.
Tool of the week.
Do you want to start us off?
It'd be weird if I said no, so I guess I'll go ahead.
We can put another edit point in. There's like 17 of them so far.
No, listener, we've edited. We're a little punchy, so this show is heavily edited. Okay, no, I'll start. I'll tell you about my tool of the week. So a friend just told me about this tool of the week, and I've been looking into it. And I'm going to be honest, I haven't used it yet, but I don't know how I cannot after looking into it. So there's a website called Notion, notion.so, I think.
Yep. That's right.
And it pulls together every other organization program or app that I use. It's Todoist, it's Google Calendar, it's ChatGPT. And what I think is super cool, you can build a site, an organization specific wiki, and it's all in the same place. Yeah. Now, if you are managing a large project, like say, I don't know, a summer camp, this is really great for your admin to be on the same page. I mean, the thing that I love about it is like the assigning of the tasks, putting them in the calendar, and then holding people accountable. I love holding people accountable. Yeah. So like, I know there's a lot of productivity bloat because I experience it as a professional. Like I'm always trying new apps. So I understand. And this is now the fourth one I've recommended on this podcast. So I understand you're rolling your eyes and being like, oh my God, it's one more thing. I'm just going to ask you to go to the website and look at it because I looked at it for 5 minutes before I'm a complete convert. So check out Notion and let me know what you think.
Notion.so. To reinforce that, Joe is a huge user of Notion.
Joe!
I like Notion. I've kind of abandoned it in my constant need to. There's a point at which a tool starts to feel really databasey that I kind of lose interest in it.
Yeah.
And my long-term, like I have to acknowledge with my ADHD that when I find a tool that works, I have to train myself not to look at the new thing because the chance of the new thing working better is so rarely good. So for me, this kind of thing is a much simpler app, I admit, called Workflowy that kind of works as an organizer, but you can also bring in videos and all these things. And I love Workflowy. I've used it since its origin. And I happily pay the subscription for that. But it is a much different beast than Notion. It just does some of the things that Notion does, the simpler things of Notion. And so I tried to move over to Notion, but found I kept using Workflow anyway. So I have some pages in Notion that I refer to. Let me say this about Notion. Notion is hugely popular, and because of that, people create a lot of templates. Yeah. So you can have free or paid templates for a project, for all these different things, for a framework for marketing your camp. I mean, I could, if you're into the getting things done system, there's GTD systems built right into it. There's, show me a project management template that works like Asana. It's in there. All of those things are available for free or for a little bit of money, but the amount of templates available for Notion, because it's so popular, is such a bonus for it.
It's very cool. It's super cool. So good luck, everybody.
Yeah, it's a good one. Good pick. Okay. My pick today is it's a physical thing, which is pretty rare for me, I admit. But it is a physical thing called the Deck of Brilliance. And I love a thing like I love something in my hands. I love cards. I love dice. I love all those things. This is a thing that you can download and print off, have something made on cardstock. It's a little thicker. And it is to kind of put out on a table to inspire new thoughts or creative ways of thinking. So you can take a problem and use the Deck of Brilliance to, just look at things from a different angle. You could take it from, we want to start this project, we don't know what the first steps are. I know lots of people don't. I always love those sort of open-ended creativity exercises as a way to get rolling on a project and start to think about it more seriously. if you think that would work for your team, and or just to have this in your back pocket at a moment like people are really stuck, you're like, okay, let's just put the deck of brilliance out there and do that. It may not be your foundational tool, but it's one I think every camp director should have in their proverbial or literal back pocket. And it's really great. I've seen lots of good reviews of it, and I love the format. So that is the deck of brilliance. If you're interested in the link to Notion, notion.so, or go to camphacker.tv/podcast and look for our show notes. I'll also put the deck of brilliance in there, the link to pick it up. And we'll see if there's there's always great tools in there if you're looking for something to help you do your job a little better. So that is in there. Before I ask Chris to let you know how to get in touch with him, I want to spend just one moment and tell you how proud I am of the Day Camp podcast. It was such an amazing experience at Tri-State this past session. A couple times it happened to Beth and I together, and a couple times on my own. And Andy and Sam have told me that this happened to them too. That people have said because of the Day Camp podcast, they're still camp directors. And Andy and Sam have done such hard work on that. Beth and I were lucky enough to have that said about 5 Minute Fridays, about Camp Code. And we're so grateful that we've been able to be there for folks like that. Today, I specifically want to highlight the Day Camp Pod and all of the work that Andy and Sam have done in bringing in super creative guests and covering such a wide spectrum of ideas that I would advocate if you're not a day camp director, you should still be listening to this. Same as camp owners. If you're not a camp owner, you should still listen to it because the ideas, the guests, the thoughtful discussions coming out of them are amazing and not just relevant to whatever that title is. Today in particular, everybody go subscribe to the Day Camp Pod. Chris, how can people get in touch with you if they have some questions or follow-up?
People want to get in touch with me, just show up at my apartment, knock on the door, and we'll chat. If you're not nearby, then you can email me, chris@planetchris.net. You can check me out and send me DMs on Instagram at planetchris1. And yeah, please send me an email and ask me what my favorite color is.
Perfect.
You will be surprised.
Awesome. Chris, can you tell me, since we're in the spring and your training time is already pretty booked up, tell me about what your year-long projects look like outside of staff training look like with clients. What's the projects that you're most proud of or that you most love to work on that people might not know?
Getting interviewed on the pod. Outside of staff training, in season, as you know, I do a lot of staff training around DEI, staff management, camp culture, etc. Outside of those training dates, what I work with clients on is really how to make their camps more inclusive, how to review their materials, their websites, and their culture, removing things, adding things, and being really thoughtful. And my favorite word is what? Intentional about how we provide services to families and children and how we create a professional environment for staff to not just survive, but thrive and grow and give back at some point. So that's a lot of my work that I do in the other 6 months when I'm not furiously racing around doing staff training before children arrive.
Yeah.
Thanks for asking. Thanks for letting me plug.
Welcome. I hope people consider that because I know Chris is really thoughtful with the work he does that sets amazing foundations for a good summer. So you should consider going to plantchris.net.
Or email me, chris@planetchris.net. Yeah.
There you go. Thanks for the evening, friends.
The Camp Hacker podcast is brought to you by Beth and Travis Allison, summer camp leadership training and marketing consultants. Thanks for listening.
Hey, Camp Pros. We love that our industry is built on sharing. In order to foster that spirit, if you've gotten even one good idea from a Go Camp Pro podcast, a masterclass, from the Summer Camp Pros group on Facebook, at a conference, or wherever else, we ask that you give credit where credit is due. That way, we can encourage camp pros to keep freely sharing their brilliant ideas and make the camp industry better. Thanks very much.
Hey, it's Travis. Camp directors often tell me they're just too tired to take on anything new. That's exactly why my free Resilient Camp Blueprint Diagnostic exists. It doesn't add work, it shows you progress. Quick, free, repeatable, you'll know if your systems are paying off without the guesswork. Try it today at camp.mba/Travis. That's camp.mba/Travis.